Hi, my name is Matthew Wellborn, and this is my final video presentation for Native American music. I'm going to be giving my talk today based off of my final research paper. I wanted to be creative and kind of switch the roles, so this is my lecture hall. Let's get right into it. So let's first start off and define a few terms. Let's start by defining what is Redface and what is particularly singing Redface. Redface can be described as any time that a non-native takes on the racial archetypes of a Native American. And today we're specifically going to be looking at through music. Here we actually see a young white male dressed in traditional garb at a sporting event, and this would be an example of Redface and cultural appropriation. And what is cultural appropriation? Cultural appropriation and cultural appreciation are similar, but there's a fine line where appreciation of another culture is okay, but appropriation of that culture is where it crosses that line. You can be inspired by a culture and be respectful of it, but whenever you appropriate it, that means that you are taking those items and those ideals from that appropriated culture and you are misusing them for your own gain. Usually what this results in is the misrepresentation of, in our case today, Native Americans. So examples of this would be headdresses at music festivals are a common topic that's often discussed. And anytime that we see cultural appropriation, what it does is it kind of works to take away the agency of the appropriated group to decide their own identity. And this isn't just an issue with Native Americans, this is also an issue with, in the case of 19th century minstrel shows in the United States, with African Americans as well, where white performers would dress up and make playing black slaves or black African Americans kind of a hateful joke, mockery. And what it does is it really led to the misrepresentation of that culture. A very famous minstrel show was called Jump Jim Crow by T.D. Rice, and that show actually went on to give its name to the Jim Crow segregation laws in the American South. And shows like this and the Redface representation that we're going to be discussing do in fact lead to racial antipathy, which is the idea that certain racial groups are superior to others. It's racial hatred in short. And it does continue today, even though we understand that performances like this, done by Judy Garland, best known for her role in The Wizard of Oz, are unacceptable today. Redface performances still do get a pass in today's modern American culture. So when we're looking at the modern American culture, that is films and media, and also the music industry, there are two prevailing representations of Native Americans. And it's kind of odd because those two representations do seem to be opposite sides of a coin. On the one hand, Native Americans are used as the stand-in bad guy enemy of the heroic white settlers in Hollywood Westerns. They're not given a fully developed character in these roles. They are one-dimensional bad guys. And they're always portrayed as savage and uncivilized. And then on the flip side of that, another common portrayal of Native Americans is one that involves idealized sympathy. They are this sympathetic demographic, but they're of a bygone era. It treats Native Americans as merely a subject of history, something to be sad about, and only sad about. So talking about the first depiction of savage, uncivilized enemies in Westerns, This directly leads to racial antipathy. These negative representations correlate to negative perceptions in the minds of the American audience. If they see Native Americans portraying the bad guy enough times in movies, they'll get that picture ingrained in their head that these guys are our enemies. And that's destructive towards the identity of the Native American, obviously. And then on the other side, there's the idealized sympathy, which treats Native Americans as this really sad story from history. But what's dangerous about that is that it's also harmful in the fact that, again, it takes away agency from Native Americans to decide their own identity in today's world. It's really hard to define your own culture when you're portrayed as being extinct. So looking at a specific example of singing Redface and idealized sympathy, we have the song Indian Reservation, the lament of the Cherokee Reservation Indian, performed by Paul Revere and the Raiders, recorded in 1971. This is a cover of a song originally written by John D. Loudermilk, who is in fact a Native American musician, but throughout the years in different covers, lyrics and meaning got changed to where the song gets further and further away from its original message. And the song does have those typical singing Redface trappings. Throughout the entire song, there's this very rhythmic kind of drum pattern that all the instruments actually take part in. And it's that very kind of stereotypical 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, that is actually inauthentic to real Native American music. But the sad thing is that when people think of Native American drumming, that's immediately what they think of. The song also takes liberties with voice appropriation, where the group kind of takes on the role of Cherokee Nation members that have been relegated to a reservation and they've had their culture stripped away. And while this is a sympathetic cause, I mean, they're on the side of the Cherokee Nation in their song, it takes away the cultural agency of the Cherokee Nation. In the Paul Revere and the Raiders version, they remove references to cradle boards, which are a Cherokee traditional way of carrying infants. And other things kind of help to misrepresent the Native Americans throughout the entire song. The song also does start with a very high-pitched squeal, which is very clearly an attempt to recreate a Native American powwow vocalization. But again, it's just inauthentic and it doesn't actually represent genuine Native American music. And then at the end of the song, they go into this chant talking about how the Cherokee Nation will return. And this is this idea that they present the Cherokee Nation as this extinct, destroyed people. They're no longer around. But the thing is that the Cherokee Nation, they're in the phone book today, and they were back when the song was recorded. So they are still around. And this song's representation is false to treat them any other way. They're still around and they still have agency, and they can decide their own identity. They don't need a band of white Caucasians coming in and telling them how they feel about themselves. So in conclusion though, moving forward and past the era of Redface, what we have to focus on is increasing education and making sure that people are aware of their preconceived notions of Native Americans and Native American music. And then hopefully over time, we can actually develop more genuine, authentic representations of Native Americans in popular culture. And by doing this, we can do a lot of good for helping those cultures to flourish in the 21st century, which is ultimately the goal. And the other ultimate goal is putting things like Redface in the past. Thank you very much. I really appreciate the time. Love the class. Thank you.